Hey everyone, and welcome to Outcast, where you are the outcast, but you are also not the outcast. My name is Levi, and we are glad to have you here today. Sit back, enjoy yourself, and take away something special from today's podcast. We plan to stick around. If you do, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. With that being said, enjoy today's podcast. Hey, how's everyone doing? And welcome to Outcast. I wasn't expecting any sunshine this morning, so sorry for those who are watching on YouTube and seeing the sun glare onto my skin and watching the camera go in and out with the aperture. I don't know, whatever. Didn't really look at the weather forecast this morning and didn't anticipate this while we were recording. Anyway, so I wanted to hop on here today. We're alone today because I actually have COVID. I've been talking about, feeling sick on my Instagram. So if you guys haven't been following my Instagram, follow me my Instagram at Levi Mac. It has two eyes in it instead of one eye. So yeah, I've been, dealing with COVID, not feeling too well, but today I've been feeling a lot better. I have 2 more days of isolation until I can be around other people again. So that's why we're recording today alone. So I just wanted to talk to you guys today about validation and seeking validation. And today I was just feeling really fired up. I had no intention on recording a podcast this morning because I just didn't. I actually went to the doctors this morning to have them check out my sinuses too and all this COVID crap, yada, yada, yada. And so I was just kind of today's going to be a down day. But then all of a sudden I just had this burst of energy in me, and I've always gotten so fired up when I want to talk about certain subjects like validation and a whole bunch of other things that I've written down. So I figured, you know what, we're going to talk about it today. Feeling a little preachy, so I was like, okay, you know what, we're going to do that. And I'm just feeling really good. We'll see how this turns out because I don't know if you guys noticed on the other podcasts, it's usually nighttime. I'm not thinking as clearly. Morning is the best time for me to kind of get a message out to you guys or do most of my work, on YouTube. I'm mostly recording in the mornings and throughout the middle of the day. Nighttime, I kind of get low, lay down, whatever. But yeah, so that's why we're doing it right now. That's why the sun's out, as it hasn't been in the other podcast for those watching on YouTube. But anyway, let's get into today's topic, which is validation. And the first thing I want to start off with is we're not in an auditorium, but if you, let's just say you post something on Instagram, okay? Who gets really excited when one of their posts does well? I want you to raise your hand right now or say to yourself, I. And if you do, I want you to ask yourself why it makes you feel better. And the thing is it's probably because the number of likes, and you're probably feeling validated through that some way, somehow. You're probably looking at those likes thinking, oh, people thought I was really good looking in this photo. And, or it was just, oh, people think I'm so cool because I'm at this certain area and look at all these likes and stuff. And you're letting likes kind of validate the way that you feel or think about yourself without deep down really thinking that about yourself, if that makes any sense. So you're letting these likes validate the way that you see yourself instead of, validating the way that you see yourself and whatever way that might be, through God, whatever it is. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're getting validation from Instagram likes, you're most likely not going to be happy when those likes don't show up, because I've definitely been in that position before where, I'm getting a lot of likes on a post and I feel really good about myself. And then as soon as I don't get any likes on a post, not any, but as soon as I don't get as much, I go, man, that sucks, and then I start thinking, do people not like me as much anymore? And, am I a crappy human and da-da-da-da-da? And so basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to find validation within yourself, which is what we're going to be talking about today. It's not going to be just about Instagram likes. I was just throwing out an example. And validation comes from a multitude of things other than just, Instagram likes. It comes from people. It comes from a job title. It comes from a bunch of different things. And a lot of the times I think pride gets in the way with, validation and whatnot, because we think, oh, if I have this job, and it doesn't really have a good title right now, it doesn't fit me, I'm better than this job. And sometimes that job is a stepping stone into becoming that next level. So I think a lot of the times validation and pride are tied together. And we'll cover a little bit of that too. But we're going to be covering mostly just validation from, like I said, things like likes, people, and whatnot. And we just kind of cover likes and social media. We'll kind of dive deeper into that now. And another thing that I think is a lot of the times people get lost in the numbers of things like, likes, money, whatever it is. And they go, okay, this makes me who I am because it's an amount that I see as successful or I see as good or embodies who I am. And the thing is if, okay, well, what if I take those likes away? Who are you? And that's a question you kind of have to ask yourself. Who are you without these likes? Who are you with this, amount of money? Who are you? And that's a serious question that you have to sit down and ask yourself. And if you say, "Oh, and you can't really come up with an answer," then I strongly suggest you cut out a lot of those things for a little bit. I mean, it's kind of hard to cut out something like money, but I think you need to have a journal and you need to write everything down about yourself that you believe about yourself and everything that you're good at, because this is something that I had fallen into when I would say social media was kind of blowing up for me, and then it kind of, business was slow for a little while, and I, like I said, lost a little sense of who I was, and I had to journal things that I was good at. And then I started realizing, like, oh no, like I'm a good editor, I'm a good speaker, I'm good at a lot of things, and I'm good at working out, I have a good physique. And it's just things that you kind of essentially have to ask yourself. And why did I feel like I heard someone behind me? It's just probably the floor's creaking. But it's just something that you kind of have to talk to yourself about and really go, is this giving me validation, or am I validating myself? So you really have to know the difference too, because you might feel, well, like maybe it's just making me feel happy because it's exciting, but I would say you have to differentiate the two. If you get upset when you don't get a lot of likes, then I think that is validation, or even money. If you're not making a lot of money, in a month, maybe that's not making you feel valid. And I know for me, those are some things that made me feel as if I wasn't valid enough. But before all of that, I definitely felt valid to myself. So just speaking from prime experience, and I guess a little more background because some people might not understand. Prior to, I would say, the slow business on my Instagram and income and whatnot, things were booming for a little while. I was just like, dang, like, look at this. I'm getting a lot of likes, getting a lot of money. And it kind of also made me lose focus on what my goals were, or what my initial goal was when I even started social media. And so when all that went away, I kind of was like, okay, well, who am I? Well, what am I good at now? Had to reassess that, and I had to go, okay, well, what's my goal? And then, when you reassess your goals, sometimes things don't line up as much as you thought they did when you started. So I had to do that, and I had to find validation in myself to go, okay, like, this is where I'm at. And it kind of comes down to feeling confident in yourself as well. And so, yeah, like, for example, I'll tie more into it because I feel like I'm kind of going all over the place. So when I first started, wasn't getting a lot of likes, no money from it at all. And I felt very valid in who I was and what I was doing. And so I felt great. Like, I felt way better than when I was, making, for example, 1 month I made like $8,000. And then I would make like 20,000 on a like, right? 20,000 likes on a like. So I felt even happier before I had all of that, because I felt validation within myself. But during that time when I had all the likes and money, I was finding validation through that. And so when things would get slow, I would get more upset, and I would go, man, like, this sucks. So yeah, it took some research and knowing who I was and reevaluating my goals to kind of figure that out. So if you're in that process of maybe like the same position as me, and it doesn't have to be likes and money, because not everyone does social media. Maybe you're making a lot of money from your job and you have a lot of friends, and now you're not having a lot of friends. You need to reassess, sit down, realize what your goals are, who you are, the things that you're good at within your job, things like that. So just really reassess yourself and do all that. So that's just kind of searching for validation, and I would say a job sense, like likes, numbers more so. And we're also going to talk about validation now within people. Now, this one is the worst because it kind of starts when you're in like elementary and middle school and high school. So in elementary school, there was still popular kids. I don't know how, but there was. And it was usually the kids, obviously, that are good at sports. They have a little of a higher hand on, what they're good at in the sports. So maybe they're like really good at soccer. Maybe they're really good at football. Who knows exactly what it is that they're good at? And so for me, I was never really like a star at football. I was never really a star at soccer. I got really good at soccer, which is something we'll talk about later. It's just kind of like law of attraction and a couple other things. But anyway, so I didn't really have something that I was specifically good at like these other kids. It didn't make me feel as if I standed out, and it didn't make me feel validated in myself. Back then, like, I didn't care. I'm so young, I don't really care. But you kind of want to be that cool kid that everyone, is like, whoa, like, look at, he's super fast, or he's super good at sports, whatever it might be. And, that carries on into middle school, same thing, kind of like sports, fast, and then being part of maybe like the football team and a couple other things. And I knew some kids that were kind of like that. Like, I knew this kid in middle school who was on the football team. He was never an athletic kid at all whatsoever. He didn't really care, it seemed, to play football. He was just kind of like into instruments, playing the guitar, playing the drums, things like that. And I remember thinking, like, there's no way that this kid actually likes being on the football team. Come to find it, he never really ended up being friends with anyone that was on the football team, anyone that was on the soccer team. I mean, he was kind of friends with them like during that time period-ish, when he was playing football and stuff, just because those were the people he was around. But at the same, I guess like what the point I'm trying to make is people will sometimes seek validation from other people that, you know, they kind of want to be in that spotlight, or they want to have just attention in general. And so they'll do things that they might not like just because, you know, they want that attention, like I just said. So that's one thing that carries out, even like I said, through middle school, and it will carry all the way out into high school as well. So in high school, it really goes along the lines. It's not necessarily sports. I mean, sports definitely do play a big role in it still as you get older, but I think it also becomes kind of people will find. So this is an example. So, and it kind of happened to me. I think sometimes popular kids in high school or middle school always look at other kids that are hanging out with these other people that they wouldn't associate with as weird. But once they give one of them a try, which everyone deserves a try, or, you know, a chance at being friends with someone, like, I don't know who gets to decide that. We're all human. So for example, I started hanging out with people that were quote unquote popular, and they thought I was funny. They thought I was outgoing. They just liked the energy that I brought to the table. And, you know, they were just like, man, like, this guy is funny. He's just got it. He's got it. There's something about him. I'm not trying to boast about myself, but I wasn't the best at sports. I wasn't, you know, number one at anything. I think I'm easy to get along with. So for them, they were like, oh, like, this guy's super easy to get along with. And for me, when I was hanging out with them, I kind of felt like maybe I was getting validation from them, because I was like, man, like, I've never hung around these people before. Like, look at me. Like, I'm hot stuff now, yada, yada, yada. And then it wasn't really as fun hanging out with them for some reason. Like, I felt like I couldn't be in my own skin at the same time, because they would be talking about certain things that I necessarily didn't want to talk about. I don't know if that makes sense. You know, but a lot of the times in high school and stuff, a lot of the popular people want to talk about drama and stuff, which is something I've never been a fan of. And it's funny because I slowly drifted away from that, just because I was like, I can't be friends with these people. Like, there's no deeper, yeah, it's all surface level kind of, because like they want to talk about drama, other people, and they don't want to talk about like their own issues with one another. And I was always kind of into people that, you know, had issues of their own, wanted a deeper connection than just a surface level friendship. So there's that in my experience with like high school, or what I've seen too. And a lot of the times these people that don't hang out with the popular people are good. We're all people at the end of the day, and good people exist in whatever category that you fit into. And I think sometimes we seek validation just from these people that have a higher hand, because some of us want attention. Some of us feel like, you know, oh, you know, I'm a good person. You know, it could come from like helping people out, and that's why you want attention, or you just want attention simply because that's kind of like who you are. You won't like to be the focus of certain things, or you feel like you could fulfill a leadership role, which I don't think is necessarily bad for me. I think it was always like leadership. Like, I always wanted to be a leader in something. And so I think that's a huge thing. And yeah, it's just validation through people is not healthy, because you might lose some friends in the midst of that. Like, when I was hanging out with people that were popular, I was going to say, like, I didn't really see some of the friends that I had during that time period, you know, and I didn't necessarily lose any of them. It was just, I wasn't really, I don't know, like the friends that I had that weren't giving me validation, but they were making me feel like it was okay to be in my own skin. They were still there. I just didn't hang out with them as much, and I don't think they really noticed anything of which was going on. It was just all in my head. But anyway, so, I have another story really quick before we get onto it, just has validation to do with sports and people. So I thought it'd be really cool to play football, because like my friends were playing it, and I don't think that this was necessarily seeking validation, but this is kind of when I started hanging around the popular people too. I would just do things that like were not like me. I have a pretty big heart, and I would just kind of mess around and be like, yeah, like I'm hot stuff, yada, yada, yada. And I broke my leg. And to me, that was kind of to me, that was God just saying, like, this isn't really you, not necessarily the sport, but, just, hey, like, this isn't you. Like, let's get you back on track to, like, who you are. And that's kind of how I started weightlifting and stuff. But yeah, that's just a little story on how I think that God, whatever you believe in the universe, kind of saved me from kind of going into this continuous spiral of being someone who I'm not before I lost it. Because if I kept playing football, and I was really good my first year, who knows where I would have ended up today? I may have been playing D1 football out of school. Who knows what would have happened? I don't think I honestly would have, but who knows? Who knows? Anyway, so continue on through with validation. This can continue on into college, depending on, going into a frat, going into a fraternity and stuff. That's why I always thought it was kind of weird that people wanted to be in fraternities and sororities and stuff, because I think to myself, okay, like, I'm just going to school to get that education and get that job and then bounce out of there and then start my life in the real world, because that sorority and all that stuff's not really going to matter in the long run. I mean, it could, because I think there's something to do with being an alumni and sometimes being in like a sorority that someone else was in a sorority of, and like getting a job if they're a manager in the position of something that you wanted to do, which to me is a very rare cadence. So why would you even, to me, it's just, why would you even want to bother doing that? In my case, like, why would you? And I think a lot of the times it's, from at least what I've seen in college, and I'm not calling anyone out, a lot of these kids that I've seen at these colleges, because I have a couple friends who, go to bigger colleges, and I see the kind of people that are there and in frats and stuff. These are not people that were, I would say, quote unquote, popular necessarily in high school, but they were people that never really did anything extraneous in high school or did anything that was, I would say, super exciting. So it's like their first time being out on their own, and they kind of have like this sense of validation, and they take all of this feeling that they have from being a part of something now, and it just boosts their ego, pride, whatever it is. So yeah, that's kind of what I've gotten from sororities, frats, whatever it might be. And I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not judging, because there's people I know that are in frats and sororities that I think are still the same people that I've met today, and they're not boosting your ego. They're just people that I know, and they've stuck to who they are. They just wanted to be a part of it because they felt like it would be easier for school and it would help them a lot more with school, which is understandable. So yeah, that's something I've never really understood, but like I said, it can carry on over into college, and it can carry on over into your job field. Now, this is more so where I can relate to things, because I think, especially in the area, for some of you guys don't know, I'm in the fitness community, fitness influencing scene, fitness industry, whatever you guys want to call it. And one thing about the fitness industry, and I've said this once and I'll say it before, it's definitely, depending on how you feel, depending on who you are, to me it felt like high school, because you want to set your pride aside sometimes to collaborate, because you can't do this all on your own. And I have no issue doing that. But I think some of the issues that I had is, or that I see now, is a lot of the times these kids are chasing down a sponsorship, or they're chasing down something that they would feel happy or proud about that they got. And don't get me wrong, like, that's a very high achievement and whatnot. But for me, I feel like you have to go higher, because you're just looking for validation and saying like, look, I got a sponsorship, I'm a fitness influencer. And to me, that's okay. Well, that ends there, and that's not forever. And that's a harsh reality. And I'm not trying to bring anyone's reality down, but you have to have a bigger goal than that. Just because I think I've always had a bigger goal for it. It never just ended there, but once I got to those little steps along the way of my goal, I think that it did give me some sort of validation to say that. And it's not just about getting the sponsorships either. Back to kind of how I first started this, it's collaborating with other people, setting your pride aside. And I think, or I actually know, a lot of the times these people in this industry get such an ego boost, because they might be, like, the blessing that they were given is amazing. Like, I've seen some people just blow up instantly, and I'm like, man, like, that's insane. Like, for example, like, I wish that was me. And that kind of was me on Instagram and TikTok when I first started. But I think just sometimes when people get to that stage, I've seen it, they kind of only hang around people that are going to make them valid, or make them feel validation in doing what they're doing, if that makes sense. So for me, it felt like high school, because in high school, I was that kid that didn't care who I hung around, popular or not. As long as you were a good person, I would hang out with you. I would go, we're someone we're people that can hang out. We can have a good conversation. We can talk together. We can overall just have a good chemistry bond together, whatever it might be. And when I got to the fitness industry, it was the same thing, but kind of going back to the high school before we jumped into the fitness industry. What I mean by like I can kind of be friends with whoever is the popular people were only friends with popular people. And I'm pretty sure you guys know that from being in high school. And the people that weren't popular were kind of only friends with people that weren't popular. So to me, it was like, I don't understand why people can't be friends with whoever they want. And it's kind of the same thing in the fitness industry. And I'm not saying that, like, I don't want it to sound like, oh, everyone else is wrong and I'm right, because I definitely don't think that. It's hard because it's business at the same time, so I sort of get it. But I think at the same time, one issue that I've kind of come across is I may not have something that the other person wants their followers to see, and they kind of make a judgment on who I am because of that. And that's what I don't like, and it's not just me. I think it's other people too. Because for me, like, I've hung around everyone in the industry, like people who don't have a big following, people that do have a big following. Like, I've been in both areas, and to me, I just think, why is there such a drastic difference? Like, how come people can't just talk to other people for who they are? It's like, if they don't have any ties to them, they don't want to talk to them, or if they can't do anything for the business, they don't want anything associated with them. So I think that's my issue. It's not necessarily the fact that they're hanging around people that are good for their business, because that to me is a little more understandable. It's just the way that they talk to them, approach them, and just kind of think about themselves, because to me that's validation that they're getting from something else. Because then I think, okay, well, what are you without hanging around these people, and what are you without this whole fitness clout sort of thing? And so that's something that I've seen, something I've definitely had to ask myself. And I don't know, I've just seen it a lot of times. I've seen it with people that blow up all of a sudden. It's just weird, because sometimes people's perspective or things change where they don't do the same things that they used to do anymore now that they have a following. And this goes for any industry, I'm sure. And it's something like I just think is very unhealthy. I don't necessarily agree with it, but at the same time, like, I guess business is business. You gotta do what you gotta do. If you gotta fuel your ego a little more, go for it. If it helps your business, then congrats. I really don't know what to say to that. But I think at the end of the day, just seeking validation through that is something that's really toxic. And I think it doesn't just necessarily have to do with high school. I think that has to do with everything. Like I said, jobs in the real world too. Let's just say you have a job and you have this job title, and we can kind of relate it to influencing. So let's just say you're a micro influencer, and you think, since you're a micro influencer, like, you don't really matter as much. You don't really, you kind of feel low on yourself about it because you don't have that validation that you're a bigger influencer, or from other people that are bigger influencers, because they're not hanging out with you. And you have to look past that and know the value within yourself. Like I said, it all kind of comes down to confidence within yourself and loving yourself. And same thing with the job. So let's just say you're working at a tech company, and you're just the base of the bottom, like, tech job. Like, you just graduated school and you got this job, and there's like these manager people position. They all kind of hang out together because they're all managers and stuff. They don't want anything to do with you. And you kind of feel upset about it because you feel like your work ethic maybe is worth more than that, or your work ethic is worth just as much as them. And so you kind of just get a little sour. You don't feel as validated because you're not where they are. And the thing is, like, we all got to start somewhere, and you can't have that validation through that, because then you'll never truly be satisfied. You might do like a whole bunch of work in your area. Like, for example, starting out, you might be really good at what you're doing, like where you're starting at, and you might be making all these accomplishments, but it doesn't mean anything because you're not getting validated by the people in that position, or you're not getting validated from the fact that you don't have that job yet. So that's kind of where this whole validation comes from. It's money, people, positions, power, followers, all of this stuff. And it's something that I see in today's world and today's like kind of society. And to me, it's just so twisted. And the only reason I know so much about this is because I've experienced it firsthand in myself. Like I've talked about in all of my examples, I think the biggest one that I felt it in was like definitely for sure the fitness industry, because it's kind of more so like a recent feeling. Over the past year or so, I've kind of felt not as valid because I don't have this sponsorship that all these other people have. I don't have this clothing sponsor, this supplement, I don't have, cool ties with people that, have a lot of followers and all these people. And to me, as I get older, I start to realize like that does not matter. If I believe I can do something, that I can do it without them. And it's not necessarily a pride or ego thing. It's just believing in myself and having confidence in who I am and not relying on someone else to, I would say, fill that void or validate me. So, like I said, you kind of have to differentiate. Is it pride or is it, the fact that you're not getting validation from yourself? So that's definitely something I wanted to cover. Validation is something that's been huge. I've always wanted to talk about. That's going to pretty much sum up this podcast. But before I let you go, like I said, comment down below something that is giving you validation right now that you kind of want to change in your life. And let me also know, you can always message me on Instagram. Just say, hey, this podcast helped me out a lot. I'm looking to get over the validation in this, and I'll try to help you kind of get over that and things that you can do. Like I said, write out a lot of things that you are good at, things that you notice about yourself that is different from everyone else, things that give you validation in who you are. Because I think at the end of the day, it comes down to who you believe you are. And then from there, you kind of accomplish whatever I think you put your mind to, which, like I said, is kind of law of attraction. Law of attraction has a lot to do with validation, and we'll talk about that in another podcast. I was just so fired up this morning, just had caffeine for the first time in forever. So I think that definitely went a long ways as well. So yeah, we're going to end this podcast. I hope you guys like this podcast. If you did like it, share it, subscribe. We're on Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff. I think I mentioned that in like the beginning or the end of this podcast. But like I said, that's going to do it for this podcast. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at Levi Mac. Be sure to follow James as well. James isn't here with us, but he will be here with us on the next podcast, which we're going to try to get 2 podcasts out a week when we can, if we can. James' Instagram is like jbud0, something like that. I don't know. It's down in the description. But anyways, I hope you guys have a great day, and Outcast is out. Really quick before you leave, I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in today's episode on Outcast. If you liked today's episode, consider hitting that follow button. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and YouTube. Also, there's a donation link below to help support the podcast. Again, thank you, and I can't wait to have you for the next one.